Hey, good evening. Eric Arnold here in the secondary studio. What is it? Friday morning, the 9th of February. A lot of things to talk about here. So let's just, what do we got? The Hur Report on Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. Putin's interview with Tucker Carlson. Find it somewhat coincidental that both things happen at the same time. And then I want to talk about a case that's been decided in the D.C. courts today. Mark Steyn found guilty of defamation by a D.C. court against a climatologist or whatever the guy is from Penn State. Three major things. And quickly to mention, Donald Trump runs the table in Nevada, of course, getting, like 80% of the vote. Does it even matter anymore? What would be nice is if Nikki Haley would drop out and get on the team. Remains to be seen if that's going to happen. At the top, Robert Hur, I believe is the guy's name, is the special counsel to look into Joe Biden's handling of classified documents. Now, let's be clear about this classified document stuff. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody cares now. No one's ever cared. It's all presidents, I think, play relatively fast and loose with their documents, some more so than others. Most of these documents should never be classified secret to begin with. It's just the government's way of hiding everything from us, the public, the people that pay their salaries and have a right to know what's going on. Well, a good way to keep us in the dark is just to declare everything a national secret so we can't see it. So this is all crap. But why are we talking about to begin with? Well, of course, this was begun by the Democrats because they figured this is a way they could get Trump and to prevent him from being president. So they're the ones that ginned up the ridiculous raid of Trump's private residence, Mar-a-Lago, by the FBI and have charged him criminally with mishandling classified documents. So they're trying to put him in jail for the rest of his natural life. Good for you, Democrats. That's something very American to do. Good for you. We're going to save the democracy by doing the most anti-democratic things we could think of. But don't you worry, voter. Don't you worry, citizen. It's for your own good. So there's also then been the council appointed to investigate Biden, because I guess it's an open secret that Biden has been handling all his documents in a similar slipshod fashion with stuff in his garage and at his homes and in his offices at universities, places it shouldn't be. And I guess it's an open secret, so I guess apparently the Democrats control everything. So how did Hur get appointed to begin with? Well, the Democrats appointed him. So the only reason they would have appointed him is some kind of political cover. In other words, all right, well, in order to try to sell these Trump charges on him and get him in jail, we got to pretend like this is all on the up and up. So we'll have a deep state lawyer look into, do an investigation of the president, exonerate him, and then we're good to go on the Trump cases. So that's what happened today, is that Hur released his report and announced, to no one's shock, that they're not going to charge the president with any kind of crimes whatsoever. Now, what was in the report was relatively surprising. And you say to yourself, why? They really lay into Biden. I mean, language that is very damning. He was found to be willfully did retain the documents improper places. Basically, the lawyer or the team of deep state lawyers, they basically say, look, all this is, we're certain he's guilty of all this. The only reason we're not charging him is we can't prove it. We'd never be able to get a conviction in front of a jury. And then they say why. They say, and I believe this is, I'm going by memory, he presented himself to the team of lawyers and would likely present himself to a jury as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory, unquote. Let me give you that one again. He would present himself as, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with poor memory, unquote. That's pretty damning when 70% of Americans say Joe Biden's too old to be president. To call him an elderly man with a poor memory. And that's how the team observed him to present himself to them. You know, that's probably about as favorable. They didn't say he's well-meaning. They didn't say he's sympathetic. They said that's how he's trying to portray himself. I think he's anything but. You know, I don't think he's sympathetic at all. I know he's not well-meaning. He's an old miserable bastard who can't die soon enough. But, now, well, they left out the most important part, of course, is that we'd never get a conviction in front of a jury because the jury's going to be all Democrats because it's going to be in the District of Columbia. I mean, it's a pointless exercise. So what they said in their report is true. You know, we would, we, us, whoever brings forth the case, and it would be brought after Biden's out of office. It wouldn't be brought while he's president, which is weird just because there's a whole other argument going on right over there that says the president is not immune. Not immune. Well, then why wouldn't this case happen right now? But of course it wouldn't because he's a Democrat. So they're nobody's going to charge the guy because they would never get a conviction in front of a jury of Joe Biden's peers, which are all elite Democrats. But like I said, the politically very damaging report. To make it worse for Biden, he goes out and gives a 10-minute press conference where he looked like a doddering old man. He was just, first he angrily denounces, says that he did nothing wrong and is not being charged with a crime, blames his staff for anything that was done wrong, blames his staff. Well, that's leadership, throwing people under the bus. That you find in Chapter 3 of Leadership 101. When things get rough, throw staff under the bus. That is tried and true method of leadership. Throw staff under the bus, thereby engendering loyalty. So that's what he did there. Threw his staff under the bus, blamed them. And then the worst part was he grumped and brought up his dead son, of course. There's a part in the report where they're talking about the fact that this guy didn't remember anything. I think basically trying to support their point that, look, you can't charge this guy because no jury would ever convict him. He's a doddering, drooling old fool. No one knows what he's talking about. And they gave some examples where this guy couldn't remember when he was vice president, didn't know who he was talking about as far as who supported his Iraq or his Afghanistan war position and who didn't, and could not remember when his son died. And then, of course, that gives him an opening during the press conference because there's nothing more this dude likes to do than drag his dead son around. How dare they talk about my dead son? How dare they? Oh! And I'm thinking to myself, that is weird. I mean, that it's in the report that he couldn't remember when his son died. And I thought, how did that even come up during the interview? And the obvious answer is Biden brought it up. No small level deep state lawyer is going to sit there in front of Mr. Angry Stampy Feet, Mr. Demented Angry Old Man, who is the most powerful man in the country, and say to him, "Sir, when did your son die?" Yeah, no one's going to do that, especially when it has nothing to do with what you're talking to him about. So what happened was, as Biden sitting in the room answering questions, just going on in a circle like Grandpa Simpson. "Well, yeah, we used to call him give me 5 B's for a nickel. And they used to tie an onion on their belt because that was the style at the time. And then my son, he was charging the ramparts on San Juan Hill next to Teddy Roosevelt and was tragically killed. And I've always hated the Italians because of that." And he's just going on in a ridiculous circle, just gibbering nonsense. And that's when they observed that, holy shit, this guy doesn't know anything about anything. He can't even remember when his son died. So I think that's how that ended up in the report. Just them making the point that, don't blame us. Don't shoot the messenger. We're just saying, this guy can't stand trial. He would never be convicted. He's talking gibberish. He's a crazy old man who could or may not be well-meaning and sympathetic, depending on what your political color is. So, now, the most significant thing about the whole deal in Biden's press conference was right at the top, he gets all, "I didn't hide anything. I cooperated. I sat for 5 hours of interviews, 2 days, 5 hours, and that was when the Israeli Gaza war was starting to break out. So I'm trying to handle a crisis, and I got to do this at the same time." And okay, let's just break that down. 1, did he really sit for interviews for 5 hours while the war was breaking out? I'm going to say that one's probably true, just in that there are too many witnesses. It might even be in the report itself that I didn't read all however many 300 pages of it, just because I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's really not important as far as the nitty gritty, as far as what piece of paper was found where. It just doesn't matter. So it might be in there as part of the report as a footnote or an appendices as to when the actual interview took place. Even if it isn't, there's way too many witnesses that can identify that, yes, this is when the President of the United States was interviewed by the special counsel. So let's say that's true, that he was interviewed right around October 7th when the war is blowing up. Can you believe that? Can you imagine that? I mean, in other words, maybe I'm watching too much House of Cards, but can you imagine President Frank Underwood allowing himself to be deposed while an international crisis is going on? That's nonsense. No sitting president with any marbles in his head would do it. They would simply say to the low-level special counsel, who has no power and is not going to do a damn thing to him, and everybody knew it, he'd just say to him, "Look, let's do this on another day. I got to reschedule. I got way too much on my mind right now, trying to figure out what our position should be in this incredibly sensitive crisis that's going on in the Middle East." And of course, the special counsel would said, "Absolutely, Mr. President, let's make a joint date when we can come back and have your full attention." Of course that would happen. Now, it didn't happen? Well, that means that Biden wanted, or Biden's handlers, wanted him in that room for God knows how many hours, while this crisis is going on in the Situation Room, or the Oval Office, or both. that's basically his staffers going, oh my God, this guy wants to get involved. He wants to act like he's in charge. What? We haven't let him be in charge of anything for 2 years. He's going to fuck this all up. What do we do? That guy Hur, he's floating around. Let's stick him in a room with him. That'll keep him busy. Here, Joe, you need to talk to this man. Well, who's this? Is this Johnny? Corn Pop? Oh, Corn Pop, I haven't seen you in so long. Oh, hi, you look different. Hi. No, Mr. President. This is an attorney who's talking about classified documents. Oh, I know those documents should not be just sitting there in the living room at Mar-a-Lago. That's not right. Let's talk about that. This Israeli thing, though, shouldn't I be involved in that? Well, no, Mr. President, now, we've got that handled. Now, you just need to talk to this man. You talk to this man, and we'll come get you if anything happens that you need to know about. Trust us now. You just, well, I mean, can we have some ice cream sent in? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of late. I'm kind of, I need a nap. I mean, don't you worry, Mr. President. If you need a break to take a nap, that's okay too. But we just need you to really talk to this man right now. That's nonsensical. I mean, how would a president with marbles rolling around in his head not be involved in every step of the way, every second of the way in this international crisis? How would he allow himself to be interviewed by the special counsel at the same time? That is simply his handlers finding a way to send him as far away as possible when a real crisis is going on. Just to give you an idea of how not involved in the decision making this demented old man is. It's sad. It's sad that this is what the country is at our stage. This is where we are. This demented old man who's standing for re-election. Now, sadly, what I think has happened here now is just the fact that this report was written in the way it was written. It's got the Obama's fingerprints all over it. I mean, this guy Hur, could have written this report in a much less damaging way. Even Biden's lawyers published, I don't know where that leaked from, all them, I guess, to the leftist news organizations arguing that, hey, this report's unfair, and you used the word poor memory all over the place, and why did you do that? We want you to rewrite that. And they didn't. For one thing, I'm a little surprised that there's that kind of give and take anyway. It's like, so the subject of the investigation gets to write his own report, but whatever, they're all Democrats, so of course he gets to write his own report. But why was it left in there then? Why did Robert Hur leave it in there? Well, he left it in there at the behest of the Obamas. So that's what's going on there. After that press conference, and that's another thing, I guess at a certain point, you can only, as Joe Louis said, you can run, but you cannot hide. And Joe Louis was a famous American boxer, and he said that about the upcoming Billy Conn fight in 1941. They asked him, what about this guy Billy Conn? And he said, he can run, but he cannot hide. And eventually that's what happens with anything, and that's where Biden is, I guess. He's been running for I don't know how long. They've been trying to hide him, but now at a certain point you just can't hide anymore. So somebody decided it'd be a good idea for him to come out and give this 10-minute press conference, and he looked like a doddering old fool. This is why you saw firsthand tonight why this guy's not getting interviewed Sunday at halftime during the Super Bowl. It's going to hurt him. This fool couldn't even talk about the Gaza or Israeli-Hamas war without just talking like a fool. He's talking about the president of Mexico. I don't know what he meant, honestly. I think he meant whoever's running Hamas. Then he starts talking in pronouns that we don't know what it refers to. My wife does that all the time. And then he did this and she did that, and then they over there, and I'm like, all right, stop. Who's they? Because they has not been introduced into the conversation. You know who they is, but I don't know what you're talking about. So, Biden's doing that. Then he's talking into his tie. You can't hear what he's saying. He's talking, kind of having a conversation in his head. Well, maybe I should talk about, no, I'm not talking about that. But then there was these guys over there, and then the war, they're arch enemies to the north or the south or the east or the west. And it was just nonsensical gibberish. Again, who put him out there? Maybe the Biden people are just like, we're throwing up our hands. We just can't. He demanded to come out here, and we sent him out. What else could we do? Or now that perhaps the Obama crew is getting in there and starting to be able to exhibit power and saying, yeah, let's put him out front. Maybe what's what we need to do is, come on now. Who's dealt with a crazy old person? Hey, I think most of us over the age of 50 have. And you're trying to talk sense to this person, and they're not there mentally. It's damn hard to do it. Goddamn hard to do it. Maybe that's their conclusion to get this guy out of the way is, oh man, I hate to make a fool of the old man like this, but maybe this is the only way he'll see reason. Let's humiliate him, and then maybe he'll back down. Maybe that's the conclusion they've come to, is that, all right, we're not going to hide you anymore. You just go out and talk your crazy talk, and let's see what happens then. So, long story short, I think this just means we are not that far away from Michelle Obama parachuting in and being the Democrat candidate, which is bad, bad, bad. She's a horrible candidate. She'll continue the Marxist policies of the Bidens, probably make them worse. I would say if I had to put, a Markham on the Marxist scale, Michelle is much more of a Marxist than Joe Biden's ever been, I would say. Normally, Joe Biden has acted like a complete and total Marxist while he's been in office, but then someone else is pulling his strings. So it's hard to say where the real Joe Biden is. But I would, I reflexively would say Michelle Obama is much more of a Marxist than damn near anyone I could think of. So that's bad. She's a formidable candidate. That's a very bad. We're likely to lose. That's probably the worst thing of all. So all this is terrible. All this is terrible. Now, I saw Karl Rove pop up his head and say, hey, there's no way Michelle Obama is going to be the nominee. She hates politics. She doesn't want to do it. I'm thinking, okay, now I'm really sure she's doing it because you're saying it. Just right off the top there, she hates politics? Bullshit! Bullshit! Who are you fooling, Karl Rove? I mean, she's married to one of the most successful politicians of all time, and she hates politics. Bullshit! Then why is she even making comments about politics? Why would she do that? But, of course, that's because she does not hate politics, and she would love to be president. So, this whole her inexplicable Biden 10-minute press conference tonight, I don't think we're too far from Biden stepping down or just simply saying, I'm not running. Pulling a Lyndon Johnson and just say, I'm done. And then, of course, Michelle. Now, the sooner that happens, the better our chances are of beating her, just because that'll give us some time to basically show the world who she really is, which is a hardcore Marxist. But anymore, hardcore, that used to be the death knell of somebody. Now it's almost like a selling point to some Americans. It's shocking how many people in this country are enamored with state control of everything, that the solution to every problem is simply more government and less freedom. It's sad. Really is. Putin Carlson, honestly, I fell asleep. I was listening to the interview and fell asleep. Don't feel too bad, Vladimir or Tucker. I fall asleep just about anywhere, anytime. So it's not unusual for me to fall asleep. But I thought to myself, Vladimir Putin clearly is somebody that doesn't have to stand for re-election because he's boring as hell. He has very little charisma to me, but then I guess when you're able to run for re-election with no one else on the ballot, who cares how boring you are? Coming to a ballot box near you very shortly. So when you can stand for election with no competition, hey, you can do whatever you want. But he launches into, Carlson asks him, why did you invade? And he launches into some 30-minute dissertation dating back to the year 800. He's talking about things that happened in the year 800. And I guess Carlson didn't want to get shot by the KGB, but he had to be trying to withhold himself from just jumping across the space there and going, what in the hell does it matter what happened in the year 800? That's over 1,000 years ago. But, he eventually, he did try to, hey, easy. No one gives a shit about what happened in the Middle Ages. So basically, Putin said nothing that I haven't heard already. Basically that we did invaded because the Western powers are sitting right on our doorstep. They did things that we told them again and again not to do. That NATO is just getting further and further closer to our doorstep. We're worried about an invasion by NATO. Therefore, we need some space between us and them, et cetera, et cetera. Now, whether you buy those argument as justifiable or not, that's up to you. Announced he has no interest in invading Poland or attacking Poland unless they attack him first. Again, what do you expect the guy to say? In other words, if he doesn't intend to invade Poland or London or Paris or whatever, you expect him to tell us? To tell Tucker Carlson? Yes, let me reveal my evil plans. I'm thinking you guys stop funding the war for a couple months. That'll buy me some time to finish up the plans on weapon ZQH. And once we got ZQH ready to go, then we're going to nuke London and Paris. Did I say that out loud, or was I thinking that? Oh, I meant to keep that a secret. Well, now you know. What are you going to do? You know. So I'd let you know our secret plans, just like Dr. Evil. I tell you all my secret plans. Did you really think he's going to do that? So, of course he's going to say he's not going to invade Poland, and you can take him at his word or not. He believes America blew up Nord Stream. Shazam, you and the rest of the thinking world believes that. I just didn't really get a whole lot out of the interview. He said he hasn't spoken to Biden since before the war began. That's one thing I might want to go back and double check the transcript on. He said he hasn't spoken to Biden. Now, why would he? In other words, why would you talk to President Ice Cream, who's going to just talk in a circle and tell you stories that don't go anywhere and has no idea what you're talking about? You can't make a deal with somebody like that because he doesn't remember what he agreed to. But is he talking to anyone in the administration? Now, that's the real question. That I'm not sure about. So, I think a longtime viewer, Jane Catterson, made some comments that they're talking about conscription. in the United Kingdom, apparently she's a Brit, and I know just about nothing about British politics. I know a little. I'm pro-Brexit. I don't know why you have to be part of the EU or give away your sovereignty to this big conglomerate of countries, some of which are totally unlike you, and you're going to give away that kind of sovereignty. So I'm definitely pro-Brexit. That's about as far as my British politics go, but they're talking about conscription over there? To fight what, in the Ukraine? I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, that feels like it would lead to an uprising, because I just can't imagine that this war is all that popular in your country, Britain. I know it's not popular here in the United States. The hoi polloi out here, we're probably 2-1 against it. The people that want this damn war are the elites, the people with money, the 1%ers. Now, they're not going to go fight over there. You know, it's us poor people that are going to go fight over there. We don't want to do it because there's no goddamn reason to do it. So, you know, the American interest over there is about nil. And why we've been involved in this, why we're going to go spend another $100 billion, we've probably now all told. And, you know, forget the official stats because the government just lies to you with impunity. I would guess the official number, the real number, not the official number, the real number is probably $500 billion that we've sent over there backing this goddamn war. You know, how many people have died in this conflict? Died needlessly. Basically, when this thing finally wraps up, probably the border is going to be around where it was 18 months ago, where, you know, Putin got his territory and then said, hey, let's make a deal, and there was no one there to make a deal with. So all we have been doing now is bleeding each other for the past, 18 months. And I guess we're all happy because, you know, he's got people dying over there, and we're just printing money and spending that over there and paying more at the grocery store and the gas pump. We're not actually dying. We're just bleeding to death financially, economically. Us poor people being the ones that bear the brunt of inflation. And one of the drivers of inflation is this goddamn war that never ends. So I just didn't really find anything in the Carlson interview that was that newsworthy. Okay, lastly, Mark Steyn versus Dr. I believe Michael Mann. This was a defamation case, I believe was just decided in Mann's favor in a D.C. court, I believe today or yesterday. Steyn, good guy. Mann, bad guy. Steyn, he's a commentator, an author, a columnist. He used to guest host for Rush Limbaugh. He said something, and I think it was 12 years ago. That's how long this has been dragging on. 12, 13 years ago, he said something that Mann took offense to. Mann sued him for defamation. Now, 13 years later, a D.C. court, of course, has found for the leftist, Michael Mann, saying that Steyn owes him $1 million. Now, in the terms of lawfare, that's, you know, almost a win for Steyn. You know, only $1 million? He only owes you $1 million? Now, of course, this case is probably just about ruined poor Mark Steyn, in that how much are your legal fees for a 12-year case? Mann, of course, is having all his legal fees paid for by the deep state. He basically admitted that in open court, that he hasn't paid for hardly anything because other people are footing the bill. This is lawfare 101. This is how it's used against us. It's another anti-First Amendment case to shut us up. Yeah, honestly speaking, I keep thinking about my own situation. How much longer do I just want to keep running around waving my golf club in a thunderstorm, waiting for the leftists to come get me. When am I going to get my FedEx envelope in the mail saying that I'm getting sued for everything I own, or a letter from the FBI, or a knock on the door? It's happening. This sort of thing is happening, and it's not always to the Rush Limbaughs and Mark Steyns and Alex Joneses of the world. So it's kind of scary. It's the Niemöller thing, that he was the one that came up with the quote, first they came for the communists, but I wasn't a communist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the labor union guys, but I wasn't a unionist, so I said nothing. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to speak for me. He's talking about the Nazis in 1940s. And everyone's used this quote ever since. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Now, as I said, I hate using terms like, well, he's a fascist. He isn't a fascist, he's a communist. It's all the same side of the same coin, where you're an authoritarian, you're a dictator, you're a tyrant. You are a tyrant. I forgot my other adjective. It's all the same thing, and it doesn't really matter what you call these people, but the Democrats are the party of power, of authoritarianism. They're not the party of freedom. They're not the party of, hey, let me play fair and let the other guy have his say. No way. Their idea of free speech is they get to say whatever they want and you get to shut the hell up. That is their idea of fair play. So it's another, and of course, the biggest part of all that Steyn man business, if you don't know who Mark Steyn is and don't really care, it was a District of Columbia jury. Where do you think Donald Trump is going to be tried? He is so screwed, and I do think that they will get him in front of a jury before the election. They will stop at nothing. They will do anything to win this election. And this is one of their main moves that they have going for them. They have the judge in their pocket. They have the jury in their pocket. They have the prosecutor in their pocket. It's all lined up for them. They can't miss. They just have to get him into that courtroom. And I think they will. And once he's in that courtroom, he's done. He's going to be convicted. And then the question is, what are we going to do about it? We, the people. We, the voters. And sadly, the Democrats are still feeling pretty confident because the polls are still pretty standard, pretty unanimous that there's enough voters that are going to flip if Trump is convicted. Enough of these independents are telling the pollsters that, well, I just can't vote for a convicted felon. It's like, oh my God, you're so stupid. I mean, somehow, and I guess I'm not going to convince people otherwise by calling them stupid, so that's on me. But somehow, we've got to convince these people to see what's going on. And they may people convince themselves. You could try to lead them to water, but only they're the ones that are going to drink. And they're the ones that are just going to have to see what is happening. See it for what it is. One party is in power, and they have decided to lock up the leading candidate of the other party. And do you feel good about that? Do you think that's right? That is more or less what it's going to come down to. All of us on the right, we know this is total and complete bullshit, and we're going to be enraged. But, what's that going to get us? We need these people in the middle that we frankly don't agree with on the whole lot. You talk to an independent and try to find common ground with them. It's tough. It's tough. It's like, well, I want to kill babies. I just don't want the responsibility. Now, they never couch it in those terms, but that's what they're saying. It's like, well, it's just a lot of work. I'm not ready for that. the kid would never have a good lifestyle. I think it's better if I just kill him. Again, they never say it in those terms, and you're sitting there thinking, we better not talk about this because I kind of think you're a monster. But how do I tell you that to your face? I generally don't have the balls to do that. So let's talk about the Mets or a Super Bowl, and then that's generally where they start because of course these people are most likely to vote Democrats. It seems these independents. The economy, maybe you get them on that. Sometimes, oh, well, my taxes are kind of high. It's like, yeah, all right, now you're starting to see it a little bit. But my main reason for trying to defeat these Democrats, why do I make these videos, is because this lawfare is the end of the country. This is it. If this sort of thing is allowed to continue, that is it, the end of it. End of the country. We do not have a country anymore if this kind of lawfare is allowed to continue. That's pretty much one of the last things we have here is the court system. It's already completely and totally corrupted. And if they are now allowed, they being the Democrats, to just use the courts to win every election, to just whenever they're in danger of losing a race that they want to win, just file some kind of frivolous lawsuit and tie up the opponent in court so he becomes unpopular and loses, we're dead. We are dead. This is no longer a country. The Republicans will never win any more elections. It's going to become a one-party country, much like California. How much freedom is in California right now? Not much. What is your lifestyle like in California? Pretty bad. It's a bad place. It's run by these authoritarians. Not a place you want to be. That's going to be the entire country. Well, we could do a whole episode about that. Ultimately, what will happen is Republicans will just vote with their feet. They'll just say, okay, I'm not going to jail, and I'm not going to take your FBI no-knock raids, and I'm stand for this stuff, and I want to speak freely. I'm going to go somewhere where I'm safe. I'm going to go to a red state, the redder the better, and that way I feel a little more comfortable that my neighbors aren't going to gang up on me and kill me or ruin me or both. And that's what you'll have is basically then a 19th century style cold civil war where the country will segregate itself geographically. Right now it's pretty much of a mixed bag, but people are going to move from one state to the other based on the politics of that region, just so they have some sort of protection against the lawfare and the bad things that the other side can do to them. So that's where we're headed if this sort of lawfare continues and America basically gives it a rubber stamp in this 24 election. If we just go, yep, good deal, let's elect Michelle Obama because Donald Trump is a felon convicted by Marxists in a Marxist jury by a Marxist judge in a Marxist jurisdiction, and that's all legitimate. We think that's all legitimate. Well, then we really, really don't have much of a country left at all, do we? I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but if you put a gun to my head and said, where's your money going? Boom, Michelle Obama. Absolutely. That's where my money would be. I don't think we're going to beat her. I hope. Like I said, I'm hoping that when they try to arrest Trump, that there is this massive wave of indignation that sweeps up the independents as well, and they go, no, this is wrong. This is just wrong. We have to stop this. We'll see. Hey, I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to exercise it, or for that matter, how much longer I choose to exercise it as I await my defamation lawsuit. But hey, you got one more episode out of me, so enjoy. And we'll probably talk again.